here, another day in Los Angeles. So I'll skip the part where I talk about how every time I walk outside, it's a scripted event, like it's a video game, and just go right to this idea that America wants to go to the moon to build that lunar base, the same lunar base that they should have had 20, 30 years ago. They should have had, I want to say, in the 60s. Because in the 60s, you had America glued to the television set, not watching sports, not watching reality television. They were watching you perform a miracle, put a man in space, put a man on the moon. You had them then. And for some reason, you said, no, we don't want Americans to focus on another planet or even a moon because that might give them hope that there would be freedom, that would give them hope that there would be anything different than this mundane life as a slave. We're all slaves in this country because we refuse to leave this earth. So every day they hook us in, they plug us in, and then they just drain you dry. Sure, you get food or you get services. Look, you got internet. Congratulations. When I read that article that the United States wants to compete,
Give me just a second, brother. I gotta get.
take your time.
Ooh, good shit.
You're right, man. You're a
Well,
braver man
that
than I am right now. My hair is a literal mess. It grew longer and it's just such a mess. I'm not getting on camera. But yeah, I said I'm having a deep political conversation today, and I said I need Clint here. I need Clint.
oh, come
So
on, you stupid button.
I will wait for you to, gather yourself. You tell me when you're ready. Take your time, though.
Yeah, I had to get ready. You know what time it was?
You know, it must be. It must be because I go to take a walk with my dogs, and as my dog is dropping the deuce, a guy walks up to me and says, "Hey, I can get you some weed. I can get you some drugs. I can get you what you want." And I'm just, do you not say it's like there's a time to do a sales pitch and there's a time to just keep walking? And I'm like, dude, I can tell you're upstream. I can tell you're upstream from the from the scent bouquet that I am presenting to you. And so
Oh,
all I
dude.
did was I picked it up and I just held it to him, and he kept talking to me. So I just walked off. I'm like, damn, like you should be like a Wall Street trader if you're that fucking forceful. It's
Check this
like
out. My
drug
mom actually
dealers.
got me this
Oh my god, is that an antique?
cavern pipe. Yeah,
Haven't seen that since Popeye, I guess.
I haven't seen one since old that old black and white Scarlet Pimpernel show.
Oh. Mm.
and fully functional.
Well, is it fully functional and has green things in it?
Well, no, this is my tobacco pipe, but it is from Germany.
Ooh. Well, aren't you fancy?
Hmm.
Well, tonight it's high life.
I like it. It's just simple clay.
So one of the reasons why I brought you on, I was having a conversation before you came on about the new space race between America and China. America
I've
has
heard of it.
declared that it wants to put a lunar base on the moon. China says that they want to put a lunar base on the moon. And basically, whoever does it first, bragging rights for all time.
And you can officially claim you have a space force.
Yeah, I know. Because just to say that you have Space Force, but you can't really do anything, doesn't mean anything.
Oh, I
But
know, I know, I know. But it's a fancy
I
title.
know. And I'm so chagrined because I joined the Air Force when all I was doing was talking about Space Force. So that's why it's titled the way it is. I want President Trump to fire NASA and hire me. Because if you want to go to the moon, yeah, okay, it makes sense to have your best and brightest scientists and blah, blah, blah. Okay, okay. It's a lunar base, though. So who's going to cook the food? Who's going to clean the fucking toilets?
Who's going to learn how to process the animal waste so that you can get rid of it?
Who's going to grow the crops? You could be the best scientist in the world. It doesn't make you a farmer.
Exactly. Because I've seen some people that are pretty damn smart and have got a black thumb.
Literally, they touch the
Couldn't grow a
plant and the
cactus.
plant starts shivering because it knows what's happening.
Yeah, like if you walked into Little Shop of Horrors and the plant from that one saw this guy and go, "Oh no, Simo."
I'll take my chances with the dentist.
Yeah, no shit. But yeah, so I'm officially trading out Floppy, my old one, for the new tavern pipe because this is kind of obvious out in public. So, oh, and we made this. Me and Tiffany did.
Oh, you are getting so good at that. I mean, I'm so glad that I have you on my channel because I can remind you, dude, you need to QVC. You need to have the Clint and Tiffany collection. I mean, you're already enjoying each other's sweet time. You might as well be official business partners because you two are doing all that. You might as well, because you have fans and your fans are looking at that and they're like, I want one too. I'm looking at it and like, I would rock that. I would rock that on the stage. Come on. It's beautiful.
Now, the neat thing about this particular bracelet is that piece of bone right there is not bone. That's a tooth from my first hog. The first hog
Wow.
I ever shot, that's a tooth from it. Fell out the skull, so we turned it into a necklace. And then the pendant is actually from Final Fantasy VII. It's the wolf pendant that Cloud always wears.
Nice.
Yeah, I bought it whenever Advent Children first hit the shelves.
So, yeah, this one in particular is super personal to you. But if you're going to keep making little trinkets and talismans and charms, you might as well have an official store. I'm going to send you some stuff offline so that, you can build your brand because dude, you have followers, you have people, checking in on you every now and then. Like you got a lot. So
Yeah, I've thought about
what are your
actually making.
thoughts on this whole lunar base thing and America versus China? Because let me tell you, if it's a competition between NASA and Chinese space companies will win. Because why? They're more diligent. They're
Yeah.
focused. All the talent is there because it's honed from elementary school, the first school that they go to. They teach people to learn. They break them in a way that they just suck it up as if it, I don't know, brings honor to their family. You don't get a
Oh yeah.
C in a Chinese classroom. You just don't. In America, it's, oh, well,
At least you've
sometimes the
had,
goldfish doesn't exactly swim correctly and it just might be swimming upside down. Oh, that's right. They're
and
just
then
duds.
some of them get sucked up into the
The
filter.
filter. And that's what happens in America. You send your kids to these schools and people say, oh, a D, a C, a B. We're okay with that. We're okay with having children in America having less than perfect scores because less than perfect scores means you don't understand the material, you don't care about the material, and you don't see how it is important to you.
Well, yeah, considering that, honestly, what I think about this whole thing, it's a
It's a
publicity
publicity
stunt.
stunt.
It's not worth
Serious.
the
It,
money
could,
or the
it could never
effort.
be.
Yeah, I mean, what? Why do we need a lunar base? Why do we need a moon base?
Oh, I can
It's
tell
a waste
you
of time.
I can tell you a few reasons. I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
it's
mostly
hardly
spying on your own
classified.
people.
I mean, it's hardly classified, but you go to the moon in order to do things that you can't really do on Earth.
Oh yeah, it gives you a place where there's no law. That's what it's all about. That way he can go up there, clone what he wants, do whatever he wants, and nobody can say anything about it because what are you gonna do? Go arrest his fucking scientist? Yeah, that's gonna be a $10 billion arrest claim. I'd like to see SWAT try to do that little raid. But no, it's a
But he's not the only one who would be interested in that. I mean, you could have an entire Apple factory. I keep telling Apple, can you stop products, whatever's China and just do it in space? Because number one, you could do it with robots. Number two, there's less gravity. Three, overtime is all the time.
not only that, but trapped employees. Where are they gonna go? Oh, you want a 2 weeks notice? How about I just reject that?
It
You
would
you
actually
you
be a
don't want to work?
gift.
Okay, well we just won't feed you.
It would be a gift. It's a gift to be in space. It's a
Yeah.
gift because I'm thinking of this giant Apple factory in space, and I think you don't have to deal with any Earth BS. I'm in a hotel and I wanted to get some food, but they turned on the news. And I don't know if you're like me, but I have checked out of the news. All I can think is you just scare people, you just bully people, you barely care about the facts, you don't contribute anything anymore. There was a time when the news was relevant. It's not relevant anymore.
It's all censored.
So
It's all censored.
what would be the point? So I grabbed my beverage and I headed out during the commercial break because I just said I'm not going to sit down and just go, "Oh, shocking, crime." It's like, no. If you hear there is crime in your neighborhood, you're supposed to leave the neighborhood. If you hear your neighbor
Or
in
you're
your
like me and you load
neighborhood
your
is
shotgun.
that's one of the things I wanted to bring you on about is I did a survey
Oh boy.
exercising my civic rights. I did a survey where they were saying, do you want more regulation on guns or remove all regulations on guns. And I said, actually, I want to remove all regulations on guns, all of them.
because then you're going to find out who's responsible and who's not.
Exactly. Exactly. And I went through my own little thought train of what would that world be? What would that Yeah,
No,
sorry. I'm supposed to be on the right internet. Am I on the right one? No, I'm not on the right one. Hold on. This might All right, am I back?
yeah,
Okay.
you sounding a
You
little bit
seem to
better
have a
now.
better connection. Thank you, thank you. All right. So I was on this thought train of what would that world look like where there was no regulation on guns. And I would say, okay, well, you would have a gun, your neighbors would have a gun, the police would definitely have guns, the military have guns, as you already know. And yeah, children would have guns, but they would grow up with it, as
Oh yeah, you're gonna
opposed
have
to
chaos
either
for a while.
thinking it's this magical weapon that makes bad things go away or it's the thing to fear. It's No, there has to be a middle ground of you know what a gun is, you know what it's for, and you use it when you need to. Other than that,
Yep.
you just go about your life.
And you see what my grandpa did to teach me gun safety. And it sounds a little extreme, but it worked. Um, he took a regular little old 22 and he put the round in my hand. And he said, "Son, does that look like it can kill a man?" I said, "No, it's a pea shooter. I thought it could only kill rats." He goes, "All right, kid, I'm going to show you something." So he took a little 22 pistol with a little old short 2-inch barrel on it. And he put a round in it. And he said, "We're going to be eating this hog today because it's Easter." So he walks up and he pulls the hammer back on there and he stands about 10 feet away and he pulls the trigger and that hog drops. And I watch it start seizing. And he puts one more round into its head and it's dead. And he said, "Now tell me, can this kill a man?" I said, "Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah." He said, "All right. Now you know what this thing can do. Now let's eat." And we prepared the hog. But I'll never forget that lesson because it straight up drove the point home. That was the smallest round you can buy. And he showed me you can kill a 300-pound hog with it with 2 shots. So that's when I started respecting it a lot more. And I started really taking gun safety into consideration because I was 3. I was 3 years old when I saw that. And it was because when I turned 4, I got my first 22. And it was time for me to start learning how to hunt. Because by 5, you're out learning how to track. By 6, you're hunting for your very first time, in my family. And that's just that's just how it was. But it was a lot easier, to show what a bullet could do than it was to just sit back and explain it. So I think one of the best things about gun safety is taking your kids hunting. You know, take them out, shoot a watermelon. Show them what a 12 gauge can do. Good lord, buy a brisket, blow it to pieces. It's fun, and B, the kid will never forget the amount of destruction that firearm can do.
It's
So
an important lesson. Kids grow up and they see movies, they see the hero worship of guns. They don't see the utility. The utility of you might need to feed yourself, you might need to feed your family, you might need to protect yourself. It just doesn't translate when it's on a screen. But when you
you might
take
need
the
to
time to give a
survive.
lesson, it shows you a survival skill there.
It's just like people underestimate the importance of a shovel. You know, I have a collapsible shovel. It's a really badass shovel. Uh, but it's got all kinds of tools hidden inside of a aircraft aluminum grade, um, or aircraft grade aluminum. Excuse me, princess. Am I back? Am I back?
Yeah. I was about to say whether or not you've got a storm going on in Texas.
No, my internet's just a bitch. Tin roof. Got a tin roof. That's a bit of a pain in the ass. Hang on. Let me get this shovel. First, let me find something to prop the phone up on. There's my little brass stand. All right, there we go. All right, first off, that's the shovel right there. Let go. There's first part of the handle. Another part. Final part.
So while you assemble that, I wanted to double down and say, yeah, I would rather see a world where children grow up learning to respect firearms than
Yeah,
be in a situation where they always feel powerless and have to overcome that powerlessness by being the mass shooters which we see today. If you grow up understanding your own autonomy, your own place in the world, you don't resort to that. You don't need to. You look at the world and the ups and downs and the things that you go through and say, I can handle that. Oh, that's beautiful. You could
axe
probably
edge,
chop a tree with that too.
shovel edge, saw edge. And then it's got tools built in down here, up here, and down here. And I carry that in my backpack. And you see, you wouldn't think that you need to respect this, but it's got sharp edges on it. It'd tear you up. But I grew up with stuff like this. So it's just part of, when you live a kind of a rugged lifestyle, firearms and stuff like that, man, they're not something to fear. They're tools. They're not weapons. They're tools to, like you said, protect yourself and feed your family. And now you've got these new generations that have grown up with Grand Theft Auto and shit like that, where you're literally playing games where the whole point is to cause as much mayhem and destruction with firearms as you possibly fucking can.
There's a
And
high
it
score.
actually gives it all a bad name. It really does. And to turn around and, if you remove the laws for firearms, yeah, you're going to have some chaos for a while. You're going to have some death and destruction. You're going to have some people being stupid. But give it about 5, 6 years. People are going to quit. People are going to quit real quick. When the little old lady down the road goes to get her purse snatched and she ends up blowing the motherfucker's face off because she decided a Colt 45 was a good gun, you know, people change their minds real quick. It's just like down here, you're not going to be afraid of the guy that carries the gun on him because he's the normal dude. What you're going to be afraid of is somebody who carries something around like oak cutter right here, like my axe. Because if I'm walking around carrying just this and I'm not carrying a firearm, what do I know how to do that you don't? And that scares people. That's why cops kind of mess with me every time I walk around with oak cutter. But it is the way it is. But unlike Troll's Bane, which was a showpiece, that was a good practice thing for me. and it can do some brush cutting and stuff like that. Troll's Bane's full function. I mean, Oak Cutter is fully functional. Ian, he sent me a message, baby. I was trying not to wake you up. She's snoozing.
Sorry to wake you, Tiffany. But I wanted to have this conversation with someone who would understand. I'm thinking about the differences between these two cultures. And I want to say, if America was going to be serious about this in any way, they would have to be a little bit more Chinese. I would have to say that if you want to beat them in a reasonable amount of time with this kind of endeavor, you'd have to be the kind of country that says, yeah, you need a high school diploma, but maybe you also need a black belt. Maybe you need to be certified in a firearm, certified in first aid before you're considered an adult. I think
Well,
that kind of program would be more beneficial than just saying we're going to send 5 scientists to live in a box on the lunar base instead of saying, yeah, we have a lunar base that is a fully functional ecosystem.
instead of being able to sit there and be like, hey, we managed to succeed at a biodome, which is something they haven't actually succeeded at yet. Instead of being
No,
able to
they
say,
they
look,
actually
we
failed. I've read about the last biodome that they did, and they failed because they didn't have enough oxygen.
mm-hmm. But yeah, not only that, but started realizing that without open territory for people to get away from each other, we tend to turn on each other real quick. So
Isn't that what we're
it's just
dealing
one
with
of the
right
things.
here? Isn't that the main reason why we're having friction in America is because we forgot the fact that we could at any point just leave. I had a thought of there's the West Coast and the East Coast. Nobody talks about the Midwest. It's as if America itself is oblivious to the fact that there's a whole area of the country that is barely inhabited, mostly because there's tornadoes.
Mm.
It's not exactly
Yeah.
a good selling point, but
Well, if you
c-
think about it, every last stretch of every last major metropolitan area has some kind of natural disaster it deals with. For instance, California, like where you were from, earthquakes. You go to Maine, you get blizzards and squalls. You come down here to Southeast Texas, you get hurricanes and tornadoes. You're in the Midwest, you get tornadoes, and drought. So every part of America has its own horrible, nature bound stuff. That's why it's called the law of claw and fang. So they, it tests us. It sees if we're worthy to live here.
what you were talking about, if you don't spread people out, that it causes friction. Isn't that what we do in America? We go to these big cities. Everybody does it, except for, you. And apparently me because I'm in the smallest town I could find. But I moved here because there's less friction.
Exactly.
Half the stuff that we deal with is all about boundary issues. Most of the arguments are because it was a boundary issue. Solve it, just move. I'm
I mean,
actually considering Denver now. Did you know that Colorado is going to legalize psychedelics?
really,
Oh, yeah.
legalize psychedelics?
Oh, yeah. Decriminalize possession of psychedelic mushrooms is the official.
Hmm. Well, psychedelic mushrooms are part of my faith, but there's some people I know that don't need them. They already fried
That's
naturally.
my issue too. People say dumb shit like that, and then I almost want to say, did you speak to a shaman? Did you speak to anyone who actually used it before
Does
you
this?
just said, we're going to do this? Because it has always traditionally been a religious experience. Like, I hate the fact that, you almost have to say a god this or a god that, but or some sort of deity or energy or spirit. I hate that you have to even use those kind of terms because it doesn't describe it fully. But
I like to say by
just
creation.
yeah, but if you just give it to people and say, "Hey, there's a dispensary where you can go get some magic mushrooms," that diminishes what it is, and then it also creates more of a danger because people don't respect it. They decriminalized weed, and people never respect it. They just see it like alcohol because they say, well, it's legal now, so I can use it
Shit,
whenever.
bro.
I don't have to think about my body. I don't have to think about my mind. I don't have to think about consequences. I support it, but I almost wish that it had stayed in religion because then you would have a bunch of people getting high together, and most of those people being experts on getting high at the very least, who could look out for each other, not
Yeah.
this person in a corner is doing mushrooms and having a bad trip and then using a knife on themselves, because that is what you get when you just say, eh, decriminalize it, just do what you want, we don't care.
Yeah, pretty much. Because, I mean, what happens when, because I was at a party where somebody had a bad, not, they were around thinking they, um, pancreas. So they're chasing them around with a knife because they think that their pancreas is actually inside the body of the other person. And we had to tackle it. I mean, a bad trip is a bad thing. So to completely decriminalize, you know, psychedelics without some kind of background check behind the person doing the psychedelics, like a license for that would be required. I can see that. That would be very understandable because you're going to need to go through some psychological, background checks to be even make sure you're functional on it. Because like I know what I do. I like to sit back and watch shit like The Dark Crystal or Conan the Barbarian or something and chill. I don't like to go out or I like to meditate, under the stars or something. But not everybody's got that mindset. Somebody's gonna eventually be like, man, I'm hungry and I'm broke, so there's a convenience store down the road. I got a pistol. They're gonna lose all their shit. It's not a smart idea. You still there?
Yeah, I'm just switching to earbuds.
Oh, I got you. I was just making sure I didn't lose signal again, bro.
I like the idea that Colorado is at least thinking outside the box, because if we want to go forward in life, we have to start thinking psychedelics are to remove the ego, to free people, because there are people in 9 to 5 jobs who make as little money as possible, and then all the money goes to rent and utilities, and they just don't think enough of themselves to transform their lives. And at least if they had an experience like this, they might consider something different, anything different. It can be an awakening for them. So I want to be hopeful because I can see the good that can be done with it. I just want it to be done in a way that is the most successful, because if it fails, it, it'll be terrible. It'll be the worst thing. It'll set
It'll definitely
decriminalization
make us look like idiots.
federally for decades, and we need to get on this now.
Oh yeah. When you were talking about education for kids earlier, about
Mhm.
shit that would be, beneficial to them, I think it would be smart to have all kids take a bushcrafting class. So that way, if they're lost or kidnapped, or they know how to not panic, and they know how to take care of themselves in almost any situation. Because all you need is five things, and you can make it out of almost any situation. And I carry all those things with me every day. Like I got my cell phone right now leaning up against my tactical pouch, which just a little pouch, and carries everything I need. I'm about to be adding fishing equipment to it soon. Fishing equipment, a poncho, and maybe an emergency tent.
I might need that emergency tent soon. Ah, still haven't found a place for myself yet. I'm trying. But even more so, I'm trying to set up an office because I want to move forward with more of a political action unit, because these ideas that are floating around, decriminalization, reform of education, we need to have more people focus on that, because these are issues that we put off, but then it bites us in the ass every single time, because we say we don't need to reform the schools. Oh, wait, let's go to the mall. Damn it, there's a shooter there. It's, where did that shooter come from? Where did that person in the office who has an aggressive moment, where did that come from? Did it come from behavior that they maybe learned in school? Yeah, it did. So if you reform the school, maybe you reform half the stuff that we're seeing on that.
What you got to do, and what a lot of people don't take into consideration. Sometimes look at the reasonings behind a deed. What caused that person to do that? Sometimes you'll find out they're just sick, like a Jeffrey Dahmer situation. Sometimes you're going to find out that they're absolutely desperate. Sometimes you're going to find out they're totally broken. Like there was an incident I heard about down here in Beaumont where a young man was flashing around a firearm out around Lamar. Come to find out, he had failed his classes, and his parents had disowned him over it. Girlfriend lost him. Basically, whole life fell apart. And he lost his shit and started brandishing a firearm. And he ended up hurting somebody, but he didn't kill him. But his life's over because he lost it. And when it was all said and done, he freaked out and realized what he had done. And now it was too late. Everything was done. Everything was over. His life was finished. And he did it all because he lost his shit over grades and just stress. Sometimes it can get to you and you make a dumb decision. And people don't take that in consideration anymore. Instead, they just want to point a finger and throw a blame. And they don't stop to think, hey, this person might be going through some hell. What happened? And I think if they find out that it's something like, like the temporary insanity plea, although overused, can make a lot of sense. And I've seen incidences where kids ran into their abusive parents years down the road whenever they were like 19, 20 years old. They lost their shit, beat the hell out of them, just because they saw it. But they didn't know what they were doing at the time. So it's just one of those situations where crime to me is weird because I look at it as a balance. There's two sides to every coin. What drove that person to be that way? You know, did they make a mistake? Were they pushed to the point of desperation? Were they hurt so bad that they blamed the world and wanted to burn it down? Are they naturally evil? You know, these are things that I think we should take more into consideration, you know, because the world and the universe itself has always been a balance. That balance includes life, death, creation, and destruction. Those are the four-way scales that rule the cosmos, that control everything about what we do. And if it tips too far in any direction and we don't maintain that balance, then chaos ensues. So, what caused his balance to tip? What caused his scale to change? You know, that's what I try to look at.
Clint, I'm so glad you shared that story. You know, my heart goes out to the victim of that person, but then I also want to look at that school, I want to look at that town, I want to look at those parents and say, where was your part in this? Because if a student fails, I I really do wish President Trump would watch this and realize that he has to have different people in the Department of Education. Definitely, you need to have different people in the Department of Education because if a student fails, the teacher failed. If a student fails, that teacher shouldn't even be paid. I am that
At least not for
serious.
that student.
Nope, nope, no. I say that if you're a teacher, either you have to cut that student loose and say, I tried my
You're a
best, the student
dingleberry.
was unteachable. Admit that you're a failure. Because that's the thing. When you give an F on a test, you're telling that student that they're a failure. But that also says that you are a failure because you couldn't teach them. So I want President Trump to enact a law that says if a student fails, that teacher failed.
Do you know where we got the decision to use an A, B, C, and D and F for? A was acceptable. B was basic. C was credible. D was decent. F was failure. That's what those stood for in the original years of school. So if you made an A, that just meant you were acceptable as a human being. You made a B, that meant you were a basic intelligence. That meant that you were no smarter than the adults who never even saw a schoolhouse. If you had a C, that meant you were credible, which means you could do work and you could understand things so you could at least do something. If you had a D, that meant that you were dumb, that you could follow basic, simple rules. If you had an F, that just meant that you were useless. That's what the whole thing was for. It graded you by a class system, basically, growing up. And schools were literally designed to teach you how to deal with the industrial revolution back in the day, to work a 9 to 5. Why do you think you go to school from 8 o'clock usually to 3 o'clock? You know, well, at least for almost every school I went to, or 7 to 3. You know, either way, you went for an 8-hour day with a 1 hour lunch or with a 30-minute lunch. So you basically, it was like a regular work day, and it was to prepare you for when you were an adult to do a regular line job or office job. It was trying to prepare you for that. That's why shop class used to be a required course. You know, we also used to have civics where they taught us what our rights were and how to use them. But we have switched that class to social studies.
Where you
So,
just learn where you just learn the history without learning the practice of expressing and maintaining your freedom as an American citizen. I love it. I love it. To your grading
thank you.
system, I have to thank you for that history lesson. Number one, thank you for that. I didn't even know that part. But two, shouldn't we expand upon that by now? and say, if you receive an F, that means that we need to do a hard pivot in your curriculum. Because if you receive an F in a subject, maybe that subject is not going to be for you at this time. You can't focus on it, you can't perform it to an acceptable level. Maybe we need to open up some other avenues for you. Because there are people who receive F in physics, but they're experts in it. I look at people who play sports, those are physicists, expert physicists. They don't call it
They
that,
might not be able to
but that's
physically
what they
write out the
are.
equation because some of them, let's face it, are meatheads, but they know how it works.
You can't even say they're meatheads because, in order to be, I
You
guess,
haven't met a Southeast
forgive
Texas
me,
sports
I'm
lover.
not, forgive me, I'm not exactly a sports lover, but if you're a linebacker or an offensive tackle or something like that, you have to calculate speed, acceleration, and your own mass to overcome someone else, an unknown force, which you have to calculate their mass, their acceleration, and the vector, the direction. You have to do all that math. That's math. It's
In a
not
split
just
second.
tackle someone, it's I need to decelerate you in order to let this other thing happen. That is pure math. They should be graded differently because they have to do those calculations purely mentally, no calculator. I've never seen a line baker, sorry, line baker, oh, funny, line backman, whatever. I've never seen a football
Linebacker.
player pull out a calculator in the middle of it. They just do it instinctively. So they're smart people and they're paid more than a physicist is. So perhaps when you receive that F in your physics class or whatever it is, maybe you're just not someone who can take the test, which is also a part of it. But
I know people who have bad test
president's
anxiety. They can
if
tell
a
you the answers,
president
but you
just
put a test in
said,
front of them and
if a president just said, if you failed your student, you failed, that would set a tone and that would mean both of them have to pivot. Either that teacher has to let the student go and say, I want you to learn this, but I can't teach it to you. Maybe this person can teach it to you and give you a brand new teacher. Or say, no, you need extra school, or I don't even know. You might even be dyslexic. Let's test for that. But we're not invested in recuperating anything from these people. We let them fall through the cracks and then we reap what we sow.
we wonder why the crime rate's up.
You look at criminals, and I say, aren't you just a brilliant person who never got the opportunity to shine properly? I mean, you're terrible people, but aren't you just brilliant people who just never figured out how to do something properly?
Yeah.
Who's a
And
better
you see,
CEO? A gang leader working a corner with employees selling cocaine, or someone in a mom and pop store trying to sell deli sandwiches? Who's the better CEO?
exactly.
I mean, one product is definitely illegal, but wouldn't
One product's way
one
more
be the same
profitable.
as the other if it was just a better teacher?
You there?
I am here.
Ah, sorry, my signal broke.
No,
But yeah,
it's quite all right. Take your time coming back. I mean, it was a
nah, we're
very
all good.
crude example, but I almost wonder if it's doing a disservice
That
to people to not have business classes being taught. I mean, they can teach you how to change a tire. They ever teach you how to file for a loan, build a storyboard of your production line, and
or, or
form a
even
business?
simply how to build. Everyone should know how to put in a light socket.
At the very least.
Everyone should know how to change a tire. Everyone should know how to check and change their own oil. Sure, you could provide places for lazy people, but I mean, if you're smart, you pay for your own oil and you change it because you're spending half the money. And then on top of that, you know, uh, I think that we should take students that fail main courses. Like, let's say, like you said, the bad test takers, the people that are good kids, they're not academically there. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Or they fail one class because they have hell with it. Like I struggle I struggle my ass off with math. I'm terrible at it. I'm horrible. I mean, it's terrible. But I'm great at science. Like earth sciences, knowing how the world works, the different layers in time from the Precambrian all the way up to the Equestrian era, when the world was basically ruled by horses. There's all kinds of information that I have in my head, but math is not one of them. And neither is mechanics.
You say
I can
that, but
change a tire.
you work a forge, and then
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, although you may have to correct me, but don't you drive? Ever cooked a meal?
Ever cooked meat?
Anything? You've cooked in your
I
life,
just
right?
got done barbecuing, bro. I
Okay.
still smell like wood smoke.
So I have to reframe what you just said. And I do love Clint. I love you, man. I love you, bro. But I have to reframe what you said, because when you talk about you were bad at math, there is solve for X, and then there is here's the formula that you use every single day, and you don't have a problem with it most of the time. You drive and you don't cause an accident. You cook and the food comes out well.
Oh,
That's
I'm the only one allowed to cook meat in the house.
okay. Well, that's because you trust your own math, and that's in a way a different kind of math. There's the
By the way,
math
that's not my
of
choice. My stepmother demanded it. I
there's
barbecued the first time, and that was it. She took one bite. And she was like, "No, you're cooking meat from now on."
see, that's a good thing. I mean, you have the math that scientists and biologists do, but then you have the everyday functional math. Functional math. You should separate the two. Why aren't educators catching on to this, that sometimes you need to break it down so people understand it? Because young kids are doing math all the time. You play a video game, you're doing math. You're using damage multipliers. You're changing the calculus of how you throw a grenade in Call of Duty.
I use a calculator when I play my game.
I'm sure on some level, these kids have to realize that That's calculus.
Yeah.
The top
Which, by
players,
the
they
way,
have great internet connections, they have high refresh rates and great graphics cards. But you know what they also have? A good grasp of mathematics. Now, a
by the
kid
way,
will fail a math class, but be good at that. That shows that the test itself, number one, is flawed, but two, but they don't value their own skill.
by the way, I finally created a character sheet for the game that I'm creating.
Oh? Does that mean I can? Oh, does that mean I can be an elf? Always wanted to have pointy ears. Don't ask me what. Orlando Bloom.
Let me see here. There they are. This is my character sheet personally. You were talking about math in a game. There's a lot of math involved in my game.
That's why I want an office. I want an office in order to not run for a political position, but to remind people that the choices that they make affect their security, their happiness, and the access that they have to the freedoms that they're supposed to be guaranteed.
Mm-hmm. Because you see, if I'd have been able to do creative writing in school, which they wouldn't let me do because I didn't have the right English credits, but if they'd have let me do creative writing in school, this right here that I'm about to show you, all from the game and the novel that I'm creating. Every bit of it. That's all concept art, a complete language, everything. And I've been working on it since I was 6. And this is, I'm trying to work on getting the first novel put out there. But, it takes dedication and stuff like that. And if I'd have been able to pursue that creativity in school, I probably would be a writer by now instead of just still in the concept phase. But I'm trying to turn it into not just a novel, but a game at the same go. You can use the novel itself to play the game.
Looking forward to hearing more about that. It'll be a very good new invention for people because they always like new things.
Yeah. Let me see here. Hmm, get out some stuff here. This is Tiffany's character sheet. Let me start with the language. The lexicon's a little easier because that's all visual. And then I don't have to do so much explaining. But I also have like I said, character concept art and all kinds of stuff. This is my lexicon. Full alphabet, and then it's got full-fledged caricature symbols that point out whole different meanings. This one is actually my tattoo that I have on my arm. This is the symbol that basically is my room. This is my own personal insignia. Got all kinds of them in here, man. Some of them are intricate. Let me see. Where's a good one? Oh, I know. Let me show you the rune for high apex. That one's trippy. That's the rune for high apex. It's a full-fledged map in the form of one whole glyph. But this is all just language from the novel and the game that I'm creating. It's called the Realms of Extier. Let's see, where's a good one? Here's some of the concept art. This is from high school.
Beautiful.
This is all freehand out of my own head.
Amazing.
That was for fun, though. That's just my baby Velociraptor that I wanted to draw.
Detail.
Mm-hmm. I try. Some of them don't come out so well. Some of these things are some of the things I see as a schizophrenic. And some of them are heroes I create to fight them. Like, this is one of the things that I would see as a schizophrenic. Like, I'd see that crawling across my wall. I call that a Voidamander.
Sounds
And I
like my
create
love
weapons.
life. I avoid the Manda.
Huh?
I said, sounds like my love life. I avoid the Manda. I'm single.
Yeah. Let me see. There's a good one. But yeah, I've got weapons designs in here. I've got full character concept creations in color. That's one of my characters called Thylos. He's literally a humanoid dragon. He started out life as a lizard. But I've got all kinds of concepts in here. I've even got a big, massive picture that's got, well, literally, he's my worst nightmare on it. And then I've got some images in here that I've got one of them in here that's in full color that I did while I was living in Ohio that Stephen King recognized. And it's called a mind razor. And every time I have a migraine, I see one. But let me see if I can find it. This is my novel so far. 100 and something pages, handwritten. There it is. This is the mind razor. This is the one that Stephen King recognized. But yeah, that's some of my creation and some of my problems. Because now you can see what I see.
I'm so glad you're so open about what you go through and experience. I mean, there are a lot of
Makes me
Americans who suffer in the way that you do, but they are afraid to share that part of themselves because they don't want to feel rejected. And you are so open. It's such a refreshing thing to see.
I am what I am. There's nothing I can do about it. So I might as well talk about it and make myself feel better.
What would make you feel better if you got a teaching license? I mean, you're already talking about teaching bushcraft in schools, and you're saying that that should be something that they should learn. Have you thought about that?
Actually, yeah. But my mom always wanted me to be a professor. She wanted me to go be a professor of like history or something. Um, I wanted to be a paleontologist. Hold
Oh,
on
and
just
by the
one moment.
way,
I have to go get some tobacco. I'll be right back.
let's welcome Block Live Gucci. Holy beard. I think I have beard envy. Yes, his beard is absolutely lovely. My beard goes in one direction. Oh, I try not to show it on camera. Next to that beard. No way. Not a contest. He wins it. All beards better. Comment of the day. I'm gonna pin that message. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the revolution. I invited Clint on today because I felt I needed to do more of a political podcast today. And I'm talking mostly about education and how if we change the curriculum, you change what the the adults become because you
I'm back.
learn who you are when you're young. And that's the only time really that you define your personality, define your pain threshold, let's say. So if you added things like, I want to add martial arts training in schools, I think that in order to graduate high school, you should get your diploma, but you should also have black belt certification.
I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to offer either European martial, like HEMA, historical European martial arts, or Eastern martial arts. I don't think it would be a bad idea to incorporate any of those because HEMA's a whole different level. I mean, like people think that it's no big deal to walk around in a suit of armor, but I wear leather armor for a reason. And that's still like an extra 70 pounds on me when it's all over said and done, when you include chainmail and everything. And Oak Cutter is not a light axe. Oak Cutter is very much like 3 pounds, so swing him around for a whole tournament. And add a shield to that, you're using every muscle in your body just to move. I mean, the only thing that's lightweight on you is the bracers. And yes, I almost have a full set of armor. All I have left is tassets, greaves, and chainmail, and I'm got a complete suit.
And to any other person who heard that, they would be aghast and say, where's your Renaissance fair? I look at that and I say, where is when you walk around a town or a city and you say, I don't know who that neighbor is. I don't know if that person who's a junkie on the corner is going to run up and try and grab me. And if I had armor on, at the very least, I could say, okay, well, if that person hit me, it wouldn't damage me and I might be able to escape or fight back. And that's why I think having any kind of martial arts, or actually multiple martial arts being taught in schools, would, number one, keep most children healthy because there's a lot of moving around, there's a lot of training, physical training that goes into being a martial artist. But two, they'd have confidence. And three, they'd have skill. Some would continue on, and some would just keep it in the back of their head and say, you know what, every once in a while I'll do a kata, I'll do a form, I'll practice some
That was pretty
moves. That makes sense. As opposed to, we just teach kids to sit in a desk and that's all we want them to be responsible for. It's no, you got to go beyond that now because you're dealing with childhood obesity, childhood diabetes.
Well, you look, you can see, along my wall and everything, you could tell I'm outdoors a lot. Look at all the tools, you know? And then I grew up outdoors. If you weren't outdoors, you were doing something wrong. You was in trouble, you know, because that's where you were supposed to be, and you learned how to make stuff, you learned how to do things. Like, for instance, this looks like nothing, but it's functional. This is an old glove that I use every time I go to work. Now, what's special about this is it's made out of my grandpa's old boot, out of his old work boot after he died. And I wear it. It covers up just the spots that your hand would come in contact with a tool with, and you just go about your day. But I made that. It's sewn together with fishing line. You can even still see the fish line, you know. And it's little things like that that you can learn throughout your life. Learn how to carve a walking stick. Learn how to make your own knife. Learn how to catch your own fish. How to smoke your own meat. Learn these things, because when you get out into the real world, they're needed. At least, yeah. Let the ladies have their home ec. Teach the guys barbecue classes. Teach them how to cook on a pit. Teach them outdoor cooking on a campfire. Show them how to set up a tripod. Show them how to make a clay or make a earth oven. You know, Teach them how to do those things. So that when they're out on their own, they know how to take care of themselves and their families. Even if the lights are out and there's a hurricane blowing in the background, they at least know that they and their family are fed. That is what I think little boys should be focused on in school and stuff like that. I don't think sports should be our main focus. And it's so many people's main focus. I don't know how many kids I went to school with that were like, I'm going to go to college on a football scholarship. And you know what they ended up doing? They ended up in the dead gum workforce with everybody else as pipe fitters or carpenters or something like that. And they never got their NFL dreams. And it's because not everybody gets their dreams fulfilled. Life sucks sometimes, so you need to take school that teaches you how to handle that life sucks. And we don't do that. We don't teach us anymore how to be able to talk with a lawyer and understand what they're saying. We don't teach our kids anymore how to be able to take and look at a Congress bill and be able to read it. We don't teach our kids how to even think critically anymore. I mean, how many videos do you see out there of somebody taking an iPad away from a kid who's playing Roblox and that kid have a meltdown? I mean, a meltdown. Like, you just beat that child. And I'm like, good God, if I'd have done that as a kid, I'd have been slapped off that couch and across the living room. I'd have been sitting up going, yes, ma'am, I'm going outside to play. I'd have been gone. But this kid is freaking out. And I'm like, no, 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 no. That's not how life should be. Because what's going to happen when the internet goes out for that kid? That kid's not going to know what to do. He's going to be banging his head against the wall going, why isn't Siri on? He's not going to know what to do. He's just going to be tripping shit. And here's going to be this other kid over here whose dad taught him how to hunt and how to go fish, how to make his own campfire, how to do all that shit. And he's got something in his hand like oak cutter right here. And he's just a living life and barbecuing out there, and his family's just as happy as they can be. Why? Because he's got a meat full of freezer that he went, or blah, blah, blah. He's got a freezer full of meat that he went out and got. God, I can't believe I did that. But
That's
it's
a
good
new
shit.
one. I've never heard
But
that before.
he's got a freezer full of and it's because he went out and he went hunting, he went fishing. He did what a man does. And you don't see that happen anymore. You don't see kids going out and fixing up old car, going and spending $500 on a junker and fixing it up. You don't see kids going out and, actually trying to start a business of their own when they're, 15, 16 years old. No, because they all want to sit back, be video gamers or rap artists or something else that just require. And some of them have got talent. I'll give them that, But I mean, anybody can honestly pick up a video game controller and over time be good. Those that are naturally gifted, well, great. You got good hand eye coordination. Go be a pilot. You know, don't sit on your butt and play, Airwolf. Go out and actually do it. Go have fun. Man, when I was a kid and I saw Conan the Barbarian swinging around his sword and his axe, all I wanted to do was get a real one and go out and do it. And so I started making my own wooden ones and stuff like that. I even made a stone axe one time that my grandpa took away from me because he realized I could actually cut a tree down with it. But that's why I walk. I carry oak cutter. It's part of who I am. You know, and there's no laws in Texas at all against carrying this. It's completely legal, and so, ayo. Not only that, but I get to show off my work. That's just how it is, and it's just a way of life, man. That should be taught, that isn't. Instead, it's overlooked, it's overshadowed, and it's absolutely unappreciated. Men like me are frowned upon. We're looked at as outcasts, weirdos, freaks, unless we look like we're, 6 foot tall, six pack abs, and look like we have, $500,000 in the bank. Then it's acceptable. But if you a fugly little old troll like me, you in some trouble.
I do like my Luke Hemsworths and my Chris Hemsworth, but I appreciate Clint. Now, to what you said about men not needing the home ec class, I'm like, for a second, no, you do. You know, the idea that a man needs to know how to sew is hugely important because how many times do you have a hole in a shirt and then you say, "Oh, I'll just buy another shirt," instead of, "Well, if I had some needle and thread, I could actually fix the shirt." Or if I use my needle and thread or sewing machine, I'll take a jacket and then I'll add to it. And then I'll be the coolest person at the party. Instead of buying somebody else's jacket that's already done. I can personalize it. Personalizing your own style is a magic gateway towards saving money. And that's what home ec is really about. Home ec isn't just learn how to cook, learn how to sew. It's how can you learn how to save money by doing things yourself instead of having other people do it. I got some Domino's today and I let them cook me a calzone, and the calzone was gross, absolutely disgusting. It's the worst calzone I've ever had. And all I could think is, Domino's doesn't know how to make a calzone. I know how to make a calzone. That's the difference.
But yeah, that's that glove. But yeah, that's part of my grandpa right there.
Actually having a real skill set. I'm so glad Gucci mentioned that. Real life skills.
But as you can see, it's actually made specifically for me. And it literally touches everywhere that the tool would rub against. So it makes it perfect for a working glove.
For a moment there, I just had a thought of there really should be a special glove designed for men who have to use it for their tool. And how well that would actually sell and function. Because you don't want to use your bare hand because you got calluses and you've been working all day in the field and you're dirty. But if you had a glove on, yeah, it just makes sense.
Yeah,
Yet another
I mean,
thing
I
you could
did it.
probably add to the store, the Clint store,
Uh,
multi-purpose gloves. That would actually be a good seller.
yeah, I'm thinking about creating a company called Exterior Arms, and
I'm
then
so
making
glad that I
products.
can mention that to you. That might actually be a top seller. I can see a lot of people purchasing a glove from Clint to handle their tools.
Yep,
I mean, you want to feel protected when you use a tool. You want to grip it properly when you use Clint's tools.
yep. Because I found a company in Norway that hand forges axe heads. That's where she got my axe head from. That's where Oak Cutter's axe head came from. And I'll make handles to go onto it, fashion them together, and sell them as an exterior axe until I can get my forge up.
Well, there you go. Clint is rising in the world. I expect good things from you, man. What I'm going to do is I'm going to close the chat for now because I want to send you that email to get you a storefront. I think you need official store, man. You need to put all your creativity in your graphic design and define how you're going to present your products to your fans and to your customers. Because I see a lot of customers going, how do I purchase from Clint? So I'm going to send you that link. Thank you so much
I've
for
got a
being on the
website that
chat
you might want
today.
to look into yourself. It's called Glacial Wear or Glacier Wares or something like that. Glacier Wares or Glacial Wares, one of the two. But they sell actual animal hides, actual animal bones, a lot of Native American stuff, patterns to be able to make your own clothing, and they sell the hide to be able to do it with. And they're all like
That
Cherokee, Plains
I might
Indian,
actually
things
be
like
more interested in because I have been walking around like a dirty rock star, and I would rather walk around in more indigenous outfits.
walk around in real buckskin
That might feel more comfortable for me,
or
spiritually.
elk hide, moose hide, bear hide, even wolf.
I don't know how Ileana would feel about that.
They're all raised on reservations and parks and shit out there. They all either die of natural causes or part of a sanctioned hunt or something like that. And they get the pelts and sell the meat to the local tribes and shit like that. But they that's how they run their website.
It's
Everything's
good to
humanely
hear.
done.
That's good to hear. Thank
Yeah,
you
I
again,
won't touch them if they
Clint.
don't.
And
See you
thank you,
later, man.
chat. Welcome, Gucci. Welcome, Salma Silver. Hope to see all of you on the next podcast.
See you
And
later,
please
brother.
follow Clint. His link is in the channel.
I might be doing videos again sometime soon, but they're only going to be every now and then for fun. They're not going to be for pay anymore because that shit fell through.
What happened with YouTube? You're not part of the YouTube creators program?
I never could get the code in time from Google. Every time they would send it, it would expire before I would get it in time in the mail, and they wouldn't give it to me any other way. So after 3 months of trying to get paid, I stopped.
Well, you
I
know what?
started focusing on other things.
That's. I mean, yeah, that's unacceptable, man. They owe you money. Number one, they owe you money, and two, we have to show more support. So I'm going to send you a couple of links because, dude, I will not see my good friend here receive a bad turn from a major company. So everyone has to appreciate Clint. He's the coolest. All right. See you on
I'm
next
actually thinking
podcast.
about I'm actually thinking about when I start up the channel again,